Welcome to this episode of the Federal's Worldly Wise, where we try to figure out the latest developments across the world. It's a week since Donald Trump won the US presidential election for a second non consecutive term. If there was one section that was thrilled at the victory of Trump, that was the conservative Hindu right wing, both in the US and in India. Right through the election campaign 2.0 and through Trump's presidency in the first term, the Hindu right wing not only backed him but idolized him like they would do to a native Hindutva inclined Indian. In July this year, after the first attempt at assassinating Trump, reports said that the Delhi based Hindu Sena, a fringe group, prayed for the president. They kept a photo of Trump alongside the photo of goddess Baglamukhi, associated with power and protection, and prayed for his longevity. But what they said holds the clue to the right wing Hindu mindset and the affinity to Trump. One of them was quoted as saying Trump was the only leader who could rid the world of radical Islam. This is a classic case of the adage enemy's enemy is a friend. But is this always true? Trump has in the past been clearly vocal in his anti Muslim views. From the campaign leading to his 2016 election and later on in the current campaign as well. In 2016, he had vowed to ban any kind of migration from 6 Muslim countries, you may recall. This time around, to ensure that the Hindu vote was in the bag, Trump even went a step further, criticizing the reported attacks on a section of Hindus in Bangladesh. This truly warmed the Hindu heart. One of the biggest backers of Trump in the US are the evangelical Christians. They see the Hindu right wing as non threatening to their interests, as both share a common animosity towards Muslims. For the Christian right in the US, Muslims mean the Palestinians, the Islamic groups in the Middle East, including the Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Muslim Brotherhood. All these groups are against the Zionist regime of Israel and continue to work towards an independent state for the Palestinians as part of the United Nations mandated two-state solution. Any opposition to Israel is the red rag for the Christian right in the US. Over the decades, the Christian right has proved to be the bulwark of support for Israel. The latest assault by Israel in Gaza, that's now been going on for over a year, killing around 42,000 Palestinians, most of them being civilians, women, and children, has evoked no worthwhile condemnation from the conservative, pro Trump, right wing US Christian. Trump, reflecting this view during his campaign, had in fact asked Israel to finish the job in Gaza and eliminate Hamas, though he has not said how. Israel has used Hamas as the excuse and gone about mass killing Palestinians in Gaza. Trump has never criticized this, and now he has returned to power, which is obviously not good news for Gaza and the Palestinians. Sadly, in their anger towards the Joe Biden administration and as a mark of protest for not doing anything to stop Israel's assault on Gaza, a section of the Palestinians and Arabs in the US voted for Trump just to spite Kamala Harris without realizing they were electing someone who has a strong anti Palestinian and pro Israel track record. But how does the Hindu right benefit from all this? Is Trump's return really beneficial for India? If one looks at Trump's first term, it becomes clear that there was nothing special that he did for India. At heart, a calculative businessman and expert at marketing, he struck a visible, backslapping, bonhomie relationship with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the popular representative of the Hindu right. In reality, however, Trump worked against India's interests. He removed India from the list of nations that had a preferential trade with the US, made it difficult for Indians to even visit the US during his previous term, delayed upgrading visas of Indians from work visas to permanent residentship or the green card, for instance. Some who came to India for the mandatory validation of their H-1B visas were denied re-entry into the US, throwing a whole lot of families into turmoil. So, what this goes to show is that the US Christian right and the Hindu right might share a common antipathy towards Muslims, but the reasons are entirely different. The US, which has unconditionally supported Israel for over 7 decades, has triggered widespread anger among the Arab Muslims. This has resulted in groups like the Al Qaeda targeting US interests, the biggest of them being the attack on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon on September 11, 2001. Groups like the Hezbollah have fought Israel and, by extension, attacked US targets. The Hamas has stuck to targeting only Israeli targets, not even the US. The Muslim Brotherhood, too, is an internal group. It is strong in Egypt and active within that country. There are units of the group in Syria and Libya, but they are not as powerful as their counterpart in Egypt. The Brotherhood, too, has not targeted the US. So the US opposition to the Islamists is largely political. Before the 9/11 attacks, the US was in fact friendly with Islamic groups, including the Taliban in Afghanistan, and was in touch with the group. Top Taliban ministers even visited Washington on official trips. The various administrations in Washington were pro-Israel, no doubt, but more receptive to the Palestinians. The Hindu rights beef with the Muslims is for totally different reasons. They go back to at least the mid 20th century, during the last decades of British rule. The crowning outrage was the partition in 1947 and the consequent violence that broke out between the Hindus and Sikhs on one side and the Muslims on the other. Post independence, the majority community in each nation has attempted to utilize the fault lines to come to power and perpetuate themselves. Unfortunately for the Hindu right, ground reality shows no specific advantage by supporting Trump. In the US, Asians, including Indians, have been targeted periodically over the last century on various issues. The latest during the COVID pandemic and after the 9/11 events. See, all Asians have similar facial features and body build. They look alike from an external point of view. When under attack, no one is going to ask the victim if he or she is a Trump supporter. Under a president like Trump, the sections that are white, supremacists, and racially or religiously driven tend to feel powerful, and this can go against the other. For example, a colored Asian looking individual, even if he or she happens to be from the Hindu right. Someone like Kamala Harris, who lost to Trump, would have been a far better bet, as she represents the centrist liberal sections of the US that don't differentiate based on the origin or the looks of individuals. In fact, if you look at the Biden administration, there is no overpowering negativity towards India. The reason is simple. Irrespective of who comes to power, the US establishment decides on issues and relationships based on existing geopolitical realities. It does not matter to India if the US administration is Democratic or Republican. It's not that Trump will be more anti China than Kamala Harris, for example. For any US government, China is a rival, and to deal with it, India becomes a natural ally. The X factor now is that Donald Trump goes beyond the template Republican. He is an outlier of a kind that comes along every once in a very rare while. His unpredictability is a factor that can go either way. as in his first term, there was no standout decision that specifically did India a favor. Yet, Trump has benefited from the cross currents of politics and religion that have resulted in unexpected allies on his side, like the Hindu right and the Arab American.